With us this evening is a town favorite from a couple of years ago. I do believe Mr. Hughes is still, yes, Mr. Hughes. The project redeveloper, Mr. Edward Russo, for the Route 18 corridor redevelopment project. Mr. Hughes, the podium is yours.
Sure. Thank you, everyone. The redevelopment process is by design and maybe somewhat frustratingly so a long process, but there's a reason. There's market conditions, there's the economy, but also stakeholder engagement and listening to those voices in the community, those voices on our land use boards and our governing body. They're all important and they all make a difference. And I don't want to take too long up here and take any of the thunder from our redevelopers, but I just want to set the stage for a second. What you have in front of you this evening and what has been approved to send to you from the Planning Board and the Redevelopment Agency is the final version and really the overarching document for what this redevelopment project on Route 18 will be and what will look like. So everything you're about to see in the visuals, on the nice boards that these folks have, and the aerials that you're going to see on the screen is right in front of you in the amended redevelopment plan as words on paper. You know, it's not a bait and switch. This isn't a Michelangelo on the screen that's going to look like a Jackson Pollock when it gets in the ground. This is a realistic representation of what redevelopment will be here in East Brunswick. So I just want to run through a few highlights and top lines, 30 seconds here, and then I'll pass the mic over. But what you have in your redevelopment plan that's in front of you, that document will end up lowering the overall density of housing within the redevelopment area. The original redevelopment plan that this council adopted and has been put into use had originally 1,280 units of housing on it. What you have in front of you today is 753. So you have 535 apartments and 218 townhomes, also a new component here. That's a for sale product because we realize that there is not only a market, but there's a desire for a for sale product here in the community. So some of the changes you'll see as well, it adds descriptions of the townhomes to ensure that there's consistency with the concept plans that you're going to see before you this evening. We've updated the lots and blocks to better reflect those concept drawings that you're going to see. We've added clarity to the hotel that we're looking to attract to the site, ensuring that we are best equipped to attract an upscale luxury property. We spell out and indicate that the first floor of that hotel can be used for retail or restaurant uses. We've changed some setbacks to better market some of the properties, including a potential grocer. And we've also removed the public parking commuter deck and contemplated a land swap for additional restaurant space within the redevelopment area that'll be on land that's owned by the township. Those are a few of the highlights, and honestly, words, both verbal and that you see in front of you in the amended redevelopment plan don't truly do it all justice. So I'm going to pass the presentation now over to our redevelopers, Ed Russo and Warren Waters, as well as the Director of Planning at the firm, Diogo, and they'll be able to run through the entire project with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you to the governing body for giving us an opportunity to present tonight. We some tough acts to follow and very impressive. So we feel we're going to do our best to live up to how the night started. 50 years of service for the fire department is hard to imagine. We have a volunteer fire department in our town, but we're 3,000 residents, not 5,000 residents. So that's pretty impressive. We wanted to just very quickly, more important than anything, give you an update on what's currently in progress on the phase one portion of the redevelopment area. We wanted to take you through some photographs that we have over that cover the last 6 or 7 months since demolition work and some of the earthwork, infrastructure remediation that's been ongoing. We wanted to take you through very quickly some graphics that we have for the proposed development. We have a number of renderings of the proposed buildings. There's been a lot of work recently with Mike Hughes and the Redevelopment Agency and the town's professionals on an open space that's going to be built as part of the early phases of the project, and we have some new graphics that haven't yet been presented that we wanted to share. And then we would quickly take you through our master plan, not just for the first phase, but also the future phases. As Mike referred to, the plan has evolved quite a bit over the last couple years. There's been a significant reduction in the number of housing units that are proposed, and that housing's been replaced with a variety of other uses: hotel, restaurants, other commercial uses, hopefully a grocer, and a mix of, smaller format retail spaces. So I can quickly take you through that as well. Just to kick it off, we've got some drone photographs that, this first one, this is a view looking down Route 18 towards the south. The property that you see in the foreground with the Stir building footprint was the old Route 18 Plaza, the Zacon Realty site. That property comprised about 8 acres. I'm going to walk over here if that's okay. This part of the site, where you can see demolition was completed on an old strip center, was about 8 of the 12 acres in Phase 1 of the redevelopment area. There are 3 other parcels that also comprise that initial 12-acre parcel, which our first mixed-use building covers. The Zacon property was acquired in the middle of 2022, shortly after there was litigation that was involved, the designation of the property as a redevelopment area, and that litigation was ultimately resolved in the early part of 22, which opened up our ability to start acquiring sites from the various property owners within the redevelopment area. That Zacon Realty property was really the core of Phase 1, given its size. We were able to acquire it, relatively quickly after the litigation was settled. The remaining properties, which included an old Office Depot on Lake Avenue and then 2 smaller retail buildings on the corner of Route 18 and Lake, were contracted for later. Office Depot, we successfully closed on in August of last year. This photo in September, you can see we had already started to demo a portion of the building. And Diogo, if you flip through, this was another demo photo. Keep going. All right, one more.
So do you have the 2 buildings that are to the left of the building that's being demoed?
We do, the flooring
have
store
them.
and also, well, we have them under contract. We've had the flooring store under contract for almost a year, and the Gator Liquidators store, Joel Tracy property, for probably 5 or 6 months. It was a longer process to get them.
We heard the numbers were ridiculous, what they wanted versus.
Well, we
really
ended
should
up
happen.
paying, we tried hard to avoid a situation where we couldn't get title and couldn't reach agreement with each of the property owners in arm's length negotiation. We didn't want to have to come to the township and say, look, like we can't get these properties,
Right.
Can you help us? So in each of the 4 acquisitions, in the case of Zacon Realty, in the case of Office Depot, and the 2 corner properties, we did pay more than what the appraised values for the properties
got
were.
them.
But we did that for a reason. We did it
Yes.
to avoid having,
Can't have that
property
eyesore
owners that
there.
were unhappy, all right?
Good.
And the 2 corner property owners, I must say, there's a reason why it took longer to come under contract with them. They were, unlike Zacon and Office Depot, which were vacant for many years, the 2 corner properties were, and still are today, occupied.
Right.
So to give them adequate time to, in the case of Gator Liquidators, find an alternative location, in particular, there was some give and take with them. And they tried to be cooperative, and I think at the end of the day, we got to a point where everyone was satisfied, and I'm happy to report we plan to close on both of those properties within the next 30 days.
Great.
So I think we're in great shape in terms of the property assemblage. This is a slightly more recent photo. This was taken in November of 2023. By here, you could see the Office Depot building had been fully demolished. Most of the foundations for the Zacon property were not only, demoed, but removed off-site. This disturbance that you see here, this is actually soil remediation that was done by Office Depot for contamination that related to a gas station many years ago on the property. For as hard as it was to get Office Depot to engage with us and ultimately make a deal, it was a struggle. As Mike Hughes could tell you, he was along for the ride with us. I do have to say that shortly after we closed, they did mobilize very quickly to clean up this area that they knew they were responsible for. So that was really a big help to us. We were concerned. This was not an insignificant cleanup. It was close to $1 million in soil remediation and offsite disposal. We were concerned that this was going to drag, especially since they didn't want to do the cleanup until after we purchased the property. But they did move quickly, and that's now done. Yeah, this is just a zoomed-in view of the work that they were doing. Okay, so this image was taken a couple months later. This is early February. By here, you could see the rest of the demo had been completed. We had started to mobilize. It's a little hard to see, but drainage pipe and structures on the site. Okay, and then this was taken just this week. So here you can see all asphalt, all site lighting, fully milled and removed from the site. We've started putting drainage infrastructure in. We've mobilized a lot of our utility crews and work. And we anticipate continuing with work through the spring and the summer, not just demolishing and abating the two corner properties, which shortly after closing, we will mobilize very quickly to abate the buildings, right? Abate meaning remove asbestos, cut utilities, get them knocked down. Our access drive off of Lake actually runs through the back of the two corner properties. So that's going to open up some additional utility work that we can do. And the combination of having those properties and us being able to push earthwork on the balance of the site is going to put us in a great position to be able to start vertical construction in the fall. Go ahead.
No, I was waiting for that one.
That was the big one, right?
That date.
And the importance to doing that is we ideally want to open our first building in the spring season, right? The first building is 307 apartments with about 30,000 square feet of retail space. It was approved by the planning board last year. It's fully designed, full construction documents done. We're about 50% through the procurement process, meaning bidding and awarding a lot of the major trades for the building. And the ideal time of the year to lease apartments is in the early spring through summer, right? The late fall and the winter is the slowest time of the year. And what we try to do when we're starting construction is make sure that we're starting at a time when, given the duration of building, we can open at the right time of year. So by starting in the fall here, it puts us in a good position where by the spring of 2026, it's about a 18 to 20 month build. We can open and not be carrying a building and in a slow leasing time. And there are still some things that have to be done before we can start vertical construction, and we've been socializing those things with Michael and the town's team. But we do feel good now that the pieces are in place for us to really proceed vertically here. We're going to just take you through some really quick renderings of what's being proposed. This view, of all the renderings we have, this is probably our favorite because this is the most visible elevation of the building. This is what you're going to see when you're on Route 18 South and you're entering from the main entrance. And the beauty of this project, even though it has a lot of different phases, the first building and the first phase is really the most impressive building that's being built in the entire redevelopment area. It's the largest, it's the most visible, it has a significant amount of retail space planned in it, and this is what's going to create, hopefully, the excitement and the wow factor that'll be the impetus for all the future phases. So we're starting with the best and the biggest, and once that phase is built and goes, we think it's really going to create the momentum for, to help the future phases. And this is really what tells the story as you enter the site. We have a lot of different renderings in the handout. I'm just going to touch through a few of the more significant ones. Right, we have a very extensive amenity scope in this building. Our goal when designing this was to have one of, if not the nicest mixed-use buildings in this part of Middlesex County. And I don't want to say like we're going to be the best, because there's always somebody that can do it better, and we're always raising the bar to continue to improve. But we spend a lot of time studying how we can improve our designs from project to project. We spend a lot of time studying what other developers are building, and our goal is to build the best. Right? This project from day one was never conceived to just be another apartment community or another retail community. Right? I think the vision that East Brunswick laid out many years ago was, we want something different here. We want something that is going to be unique, and we have, and I know Warren feels this way, we feel a personal obligation to deliver something that's of a very high quality. And the one thing that I would ask you to take away as you look at our renderings, when you look at the building facades, when you look at the design of the open spaces, if you dig into our floor plans, you look at the size of the units, you look at how the buildings are laid out, everything about what we've designed here is meant to say quality. It's a very competitive market. This is a great ground level rendering that shows our retail space. There's a lot of product being built. There's a lot of competition, no matter what township you're in. And, you know, we want to make sure we can build something that'll stand the test of time and be competitive well into the future. That comes at a cost, but when you're, when you're long-term oriented like we are in terms of we try to build things that we can own and make a return on over an extended period of time, not just day one, you can justify doing things that you don't see on, every other mixed-use development.
One of the reasons the redevelopment agency and the township looked to partner with Russo and River Development was because of the long-term hold position that is had by this group. And we honestly look at it as a partnership, and we're proud to have someone who wants to be a partner with the town for a long term,
We appreciate you saying that, and we feel a personal obligation to deliver here. I mean, this is a very important project for us, not just because we have a, significant financial investment in it, but, the thing that I think distinguishes our company and has for a number of years is we try to be the best we can and deliver projects in communities that, want what we're proposing. Like we're very careful to build in places where we think we can be successful, and we got a good glimpse tonight of what type of community East Brunswick is, and we want to be a part of it, and we want to do the right thing here. And that doesn't just mean building nice buildings. It means, being a good neighbor, having open space, being sensitive to the township's concerns, and we've heard a number of them in the couple years that we've been working on this. So there's a lot that we're trying to balance here. So just a couple of quick more renderings. A lot of these are street level as you enter the site. If you keep going, this is wrapping around our proposed Building A, some of the ground floor retail. This is an overhead view of the park that I made reference to before. This was actually a relatively recent change in the plan. We had additional circulation that ran through this area that we realized really wasn't necessary given all the different access points that we have coming into the site. And, this was something that was actually noted by the town's professionals. They said, look, we would like to have a bigger open space that's visible from the highway, that has surface parking that not just residents, can use to get access, right? People that can come in from the public, park, go to the retail, which is just off the plan to the north here, and have an open space that can be enjoyed. We worked with our landscape architect, Malolo and Bauer. They came up with a number of different concepts. We eliminated a roadway that created more room to expand the park, and I think they've come up with something really creative. And if we keep flipping through, you can see some ground level images that show aspects of this park. A lot of seating areas, a lot of change in elevation, which is challenging in a way, right? It's always easy to work when you have a flat site. But the fact that there's some good grade change across this property also creates opportunity for amphitheater seating, retaining walls that can be a little bit decorative as you walk through the park. Yep, this gives you a nice view looking back, close to where the jug handle is on Route 18, looking back towards Building B, which is our second proposed building, and then Building A on the left, which is the one that we're starting with. Another rendering of the park. Yep, just another view. This is actually a dog park. We have enough room here where we can do a small dog and large dog park, which we're seeing in bigger communities like this. We try to be pet friendly because so many residents today, do have pets. That having amenities that are geared towards pets are important. And apparently, big dogs don't always play good with small dogs, so we usually have more than one dog park for that reason. And then this is just a more polished rendering of some of the views we were looking at before where, you can see this building, which we're actually getting close to submitting a site plan application for to the planning board. This amended redevelopment plan was creating part of the impetus to accommodate the second building. So we've already done a lot of design in anticipation of the amendment getting adopted and us being able to go back to the planning board. Even though we aren't building the buildings at the same time, right? Building A is going first, which is 307 units. Building B, which is 243 units, is coming second. Having them both designed, given that there's so much overlap between the infrastructure and the access, was really, we thought was important. And the park design is included in this new site plan application that we're submitting. Okay, so our master plan. I know that the governing body has seen this a number of times in the past, so we'll present it very quickly, but just to highlight a few of the changes that Mike made reference to. This is just an aerial that shows all the different parcels in the redevelopment area. The parcels on the right-hand side of the aerial are the ones that we were talking about before, right? This is all phase one. So you got the old Zacon Realty Strip Center, which has now been demolished, Office Depot, and then the two corner properties, right? Those 4 parcels are where Building A sit. Building B sits in this area in the rear of the site. And then everything that you see from here to the left, the old Loman's Plaza, a couple of the properties along Route 18, the Gulf Station, the office buildings that are owned by Tongbu, the small corner property that's owned by the Township. This is all part of the future phases.
No timeline on that.
I could tell you that the next phase to go beyond construction of Building B, and there's a possibility there could be some overlap with this next phase and construction of Building B, would be this portion of the site. So where the former Loman's Plaza is located. And we're in active discussions and negotiations with the property owner for that site, and we're hopeful that we're going to reach an agreement hopefully soon that would at least put us in a position where we could finalize our design, go before the planning board, start getting our land use approvals. They have some tenants in occupancy that, ultimately, to allow redevelopment, are going to need to vacate. So we're trying hard to get to a point where we have a better time frame on when the Loman's Plaza redevelopment could start. But it's a high priority that we're actively working on. This is just a quick overview of our master plan. Building A is our 5-story mixed-use building. We did get approval for a small retail pad at the planning board, which is not planned to be built day one. We want to make sure that by building this building, we don't reduce the visibility or impede the ability of these ground floor retail spaces facing Route 18 to be leased. So our feeling is we should build Building A, make sure that we can fill the retail, make sure that we have adequate surface parking to serve that retail. All of the residential parking is below the building, right? We have 2 levels of covered parking, one in a basement level, one in a at-grade level. If we can lease this retail and we still feel like we have adequate parking left to accommodate a corner retail building, we would build that building. But we want to make sure we don't put the cart before the horse. This is our second building, Building B, which will be coming into the planning board on soon. All of these smaller buildings that you see on this side of the site, these are all lower density, carriage home, townhome type buildings. We wanted to be careful not to just fill the site with housing and have all the same type of product, right? For a community this size, having a variety of housing is very important. Otherwise, we start to compete with ourselves, or we start to create too much saturation of one type of product. East Brunswick, for a lot of different reasons, right? Some of them we heard tonight, but you know better than me the reputation that the East Brunswick school system has. It's a very attractive place, I think, for people that don't necessarily want to rent. They want to own a home. And we wanted to be able to accommodate that type of housing for that group of potential residents. And that's what the bulk of what's being proposed in the future phases would be. Once we get to the highway frontage, it wouldn't necessarily be appropriate to have housing right up on the highway. Earlier versions of the redevelopment plan actually showed mixed-use buildings, partially set back from 18, but closer than we're currently proposing. We've replaced those buildings with a variety of either small retail buildings, right? These are two potential restaurants on a parcel that might ultimately be owned by the township, right? This was the land swap that Mike Hughes made reference to. It's very likely that the township is ultimately going to own this parcel, and it's currently planning, which could change, several food restaurant uses for that site. We have a building that could accommodate larger format retail, like a grocer, for example, planned, another smaller retail pad, and then on the corner of Ruth Street and Route 18, on a parcel that the township currently owns, where the former transportation center was planned, that's now being planned for a hotel. You know, of all the elements in our master plan, the ones that have the most uncertainty in terms of like who's going to be there and what's the right use are really all the uses on Route 18, because those are all tenant driven, right? The housing, you know, we feel pretty confident that the plan that we've laid out is ultimately what would ultimately get built. Along Route 18, we want to be flexible to make sure that if there's good commercial uses that, you know, are in the market, maybe there's a medical office use that would take one of the retail pads, we want to be able to accommodate those uses and not just be rigid and say, no, these are the only things that we think belong here. So I'm going to stop there for a second, just because I've been talking a lot. Does anybody have any questions on what we've presented so far?
My name is Raluca Negre. Thank you to the council for allowing us to have this open presentation. Two questions. One, if you are thinking about the noise, you're going to be right by Old Bridge Turnpike, and I expect a lot of noise, of course, pollution and other things. This is one main concern. Considering that we are converting a commercial property to a residential property, right? We are repurposing the use of that lot. And the second question will be schools allocation. We are already 3 apartment complexes right next to that lot. It's Lake Estates, Cross Point, and Kingswood Apartments. And all our children are allocated to Memorial School, and I can tell you, every year more than 500 students. And my children were in classes with more than 20 students per one teacher, sometimes 2 teachers. So the ratio for one teacher is more than 15 students, right?
I'm sorry, both valid points, but so with respect to noise, and just from a township perspective, I'll answer that from the land use rules. All of the plans that are outlined here go before a land use board, so things like noise, things like traffic, things like parking are all addressed in the land use process, whether it be at the planning or zoning boards. In these cases, they go before the planning boards. There are hearings, they're open to the public, and you can take those concerns there, but those are all part of the land use process that gets dealt with at that point. With respect to the schools, without speaking for council president or the mayor, I know that the administration works very closely with the East Brunswick Public Schools to ensure that not only are they aware of plans, but that there are contingency plans involved, as well as making sure that there is adequate capacity in the schools, of which I believe we are assured that there are. So, and I don't think Memorial is necessarily the school that these folks would be going to anyway, but when you're talking about the unit mix here, which is up on the screen at the very top, and I know you can't see from your angle, when we're talking about the multifamily buildings here, we're talking overwhelmingly studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms. Part of the analysis that is done is we look at apartments all over the state, how many kids are brought into those specific square footage and unit styles. We don't expect there to be an influx of hundreds and hundreds of kids resulting from this, but both really good points, and we do take them seriously and address them. Thank you.
And one follow-up point with respect to noise. There's 3 or 4 mistakes that are unfixable that we could make as residential builders. that we can't afford to do. And one of them is, we build a building and we don't have good property management, and residents feel like they're not being serviced. That's a huge problem. Two, we build a project and we can't rent it for a price that people in the community think is, are willing to pay. And the third is noise. If we do a lot of transit-oriented development near train stations. We've built on close to state highways before, throughout Middlesex County, Union County, other areas. If you have a noise problem, it's extremely difficult to fix. So we try to design our buildings so that windows, for example, which are a weak point on the facades, we use very high, what's called SDC-rated glass, so that if we're close to a rail line, if we're close to a highway, if we're close to, we have buildings that are close to, manufacturing or industrial, we've put the thought and effort into the design of the building so we're not creating an issue. But as Mike said, we'll be back before the planning board many times in the future, and we're happy to get more technical in terms of addressing questions. Okay, Diogo. You know what, I'm not going to go through more of the master plan. We have tons of other, floor plans and, parking level plans, amenity plans, but we just wanted to give you a good overview of the latest concept and particularly the early phases.
Right, you did not come here with a radical change in the plan.
That's correct. I would say that is particularly for the first two buildings. I mean, Warren Waters can speak to this. He was here in 2019, 20, when the 2018, when the original concepts that Warren had prepared, working with Malone Bauer, were presented. The shape, if you go back to those earliest plans, the shape of the buildings that we're proposing are pretty similar to what was planned there. The major changes really occurred on the northernmost part of the redevelopment. That's where a lot of the additional housing that was proposed was removed, and a lot more focus was put on the, the commercial spaces.
Mr. Russo, Mr. Waters, I know you've both been working diligently for the past several years with the redevelopment agency and the township, and what is being presented here tonight and what we're looking to vote on tonight is not a radical change to the plan. It's actually an advantageous change as far as I'm concerned. I mean, we're lowering the density, we're still creating the community that we wanted to create from the beginning, and as the chairman of the redevelopment agency, I mean, I urge everyone to review this and look at it as a positive change to the plan, not a change that is being in any way deleterious or anything to the original plan. Thank you for your time tonight. I appreciate all your time.
I feel like that there's a certain part of this that isn't business, that isn't dollars and cents, although all of that's part of it. When the mayor and the redevelopment agency conceived this area as a area in need of redevelopment and went through everything that had to get done, it was opened up to every developer in the state, had an opportunity to come into East Brunswick and offer their vision of what they wanted to do here. But the reality is there was a major lawsuit, and no one was willing to risk. People much smarter than me were not willing to risk coming in and putting themselves on the line publicly, financially, and everything else. And I'll never forget this night that the case was settled, and I lived with it for 12 months. Some nights I didn't sleep so well. And it was a watershed moment, primarily because my papa passed away. It was the night that he passed away that I got a phone call from one of our attorneys saying that the judge had settled the lawsuit. So it was very emotional. There was a lot to it. And it was at that time, within a week or two, that I had reached out for Ed, and I said, Ed, I think we're through the worst of this. I'd like us to join together and move forward and make this something. And from that point, we have never stopped. We have dug in, and we've done everything we have to do. So doing this, while it's important for all the reasons we saw here tonight, for me is a personal issue, and not only are there tens of millions of dollars in the project, but you can bet, as sure as I'm standing here, when that building comes out of the ground, it'll be the best thing that the municipality has right now. It'll be owned for generations. It'll be managed in a way where you can eat off the parking lot. Thank you.
As I say, having been in the residential real estate business for my whole life, and especially with rentals, and I know the way Ed and Mr. Waters run their properties, it's opening day every day. So, you know, the property's always going to look stunning. So thank you guys for your presentation tonight from my perspective and from the redevelopment agency's perspective.
Please.
I just have to say thank you. I think this is a very advantageous plan. We're down 527 units, which I think is good for the community. But I think what you did in placement of that was awesome. I love the land swap idea. I love the green space that you created. It seems like a community inside of our community. And I love the fact that not just the people that live there can take advantage of it, but everybody in East Brunswick can come in and use that. So I think it's a great improvement. Not that the original wasn't, but this I'm really happy with. So thank you.
Mayor Cohen?
Well, just, again, I want to thank both of you for coming out here again and explaining to the public and to this council what it is that we're trying to do. And we all have to learn to adapt, and sometimes we get hit with things that make us have to rethink, and I think COVID was one of them. While we were sitting waiting for the answer for the judge on that lawsuit, which ultimately, thankfully, came in favor of the township. But I think that after COVID, we realized the importance of having green space and the ability for the communities to interact. We, as a community, had one of the positive benefits out of COVID was that people got out of their houses and found the importance of open space. I think that it also allowed us to recognize that maybe retail has a shot. If people are going to be working remotely, or if they're going to be working in a hybrid work schedule, there's going to be a lot of people that are not necessarily taking a bus or a train and going into the city. So there are people living there all day long that may utilize some of the space that I know developers just are so skittish about building. And I think that the idea of creating community within a community has always been important to us. If you look at what's going on with the affordable housing third round that started in 2015-16, a lot of the buildings that really were being built throughout the state we're first starting to see now, right? You look how long this took, and developers just don't we're not genies, they're not able to build this overnight. So all I hear from residents and people that live in the state as they drive up and down the major highways, oh, another apartment, another town, another. They don't understand that this was decided back in 2015, and we're just first starting to see many of these now. And my biggest pet peeve about them is they all look the same. And someday we're all going to be looking back at the 2020 when these things started going up and saying, oh, that was built in 2020. They all, nothing, you can't distinguish them. We never wanted that to be what we did on Route 18. We said that from day one. And I think and from what we understand of your reputation is that your buildings turn out pretty darn close to what the renderings were. And so if that's what we're going to expect to see as you come off of Route 18, I think it will make a statement, and it will stand the test of time, and that's exactly what we're hoping to do. And we're hoping that in doing that, it allows other retail establishments that are on this corridor to say, you know what, we've just significantly upped the baseline. And it forces upward mobility and an opportunity for those companies to invest in their own properties as well. So it's a snowball, but the snowball takes time to get moving, but when it does, it will roll down the rest of the highway. And this is the beginning of that process. We've always seen that. I think the residents now have a better picture with actual pictures, and I look forward, like the rest of us, to actually see it start to come out of the ground and really happen. So I thank you.